name is Chef Tai. I have several restaurants here in town under Chef Tai's Restaurant Group here, mainly Salt, Urban Table, and a Palace Italian Kitchen. Today we're going to talk about how to cook steak at your home. It is really easy process, and you can definitely follow this direction, and you can really be a masterful steak cooker. All right, so here, let's take a look at the ingredient here. We have a great ribeye steak, oil, butter, salt, pepper, asparagus, potato, and a little aromatic of garlic. And we have a little bit of thyme, and then we got tomatoes. And so to cook the steak, it's really a simple process. You gotta think about really hot pan and some simple great ingredient. That's it. So to start, we're going to start with cooking some potato, and we're gonna be cooking steak. So on this back pan, we're going to saute a little bit of potatoes while we're preparing the steak dish. And then we're going to go through some of the know-hows and a little bit of secrets, what chefs do to actually cook a perfect steak, okay? So while the pan is getting warm, and it is essential that the pan is hot. So for the steak, we're gonna have a hot pan, and for the potato, we're gonna have a hot to medium pan. But while the pans are getting seared up, we're going to be preparing the steak. So this is just a nice simple cut of a ribeye, and you'll see a nice little fat caps. And we do want to leave some of this fat caps because it is the one that is going to actually bring out some flavors for us. So we need to have a general seasoning of the steak, and you'll be actually using a lot more seasoning than you would originally anticipate. The reason is it has quite the thickness. So if you don't have an actual abundance of a seasoning, once you cut into the meat, you'll actually think, oh, the meat is actually bland. So to prevent that from happening, you do want to actually over season just a little bit and definitely rub it into the meat, as you can see. Now, it is very critical. Before we started this video, the meat was sitting out on the room temperature for about 20 minutes. The reason it is, you do not want to start with a very cold cut of a meat, because then the inside will be really cold and outside will be really hot, and then you're going to have a really uneven cooking temperature. So it is important to kind of bring the meat to the room temperature, so when you cook it, actually cooks it a lot nice and even. Now on the back side here, the pan is getting warm. On the smaller pan, it is getting warmer, so that is getting up there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to pour a little bit of oil on both pans. Don't need a whole lot. And make sure the pan gets coated with the oil. And then on this side, we're going to toss a little bit of a potato. And you can hear that sizzle, and that is the important part. If you don't hear that sizzle, you know the potato or the pan was not hot and it will not cook properly. Again, you need to season some salt and pepper to it. Every little ingredient needs a little bit of seasoning. Just lightly saute it around. Let the pan do the job. Okay, so now once the potato's in there, you want to turn the dial to about medium heat. So you're not cooking the potato on a full blast. Now on here, it is definitely hotted up. So what we'll do is we're going to grab this meat that we just seasoned up, and you're going to drop it from front to back. You don't want to drop it back to front where you can risk splashing some hot oil to you. So you want to put the steak away from you, and again, let the pan do the job, okay? Pan will do the searing part, and we're going to just let this meat sit there for about a minute while the potatoes are going. So you can see, make sure the potato doesn't stick to you on the pan. So just toss it around a little bit. And then let it continue to cook. Now, as you can see, the steaks are cooking, and I can see on the side, the very bottom of the meat is actually start to turn opaque. Once the side of the steak starts to turn opaque, that means it is actually heating through the side of the meat. So that is a good process. Now it is very important to know sort of the doneness of the meat. So the basic simple step that we do is we have a little palm and we have this little fatty part right underneath the thumb. If you cough it, that texture of you pressuring into the thumb is about rare doneness. Very similar to the thumb and the meat. Now, if you open it halfway and press it, it will be a little bit firmer. That is about medium. If you completely open up and stiff it, that really firm palm pressure is about where well done steak will be. So that is kind of general rule of thumb when you're cooking the meat, just to kind of know where the general doneness is. So now the steak is browned up, perfect, and we're going to again flip the steak and push it away from me. As you can see, we have a nice browning on it, and you can see all this little fat. That is very important actually to continue to render out and cook with it. And then this fat cap will be tilted a little later and then rendered out even further just to get a little bit more flavor out of it. Now, just to get this steak to have additional flavor onto it, we're going to add some aromatics, a little thyme, and a little bit of garlic. So you can see the oil will cook the thyme and our garlic, and all that will actually add into the flavor. Smells really good. All right, so once the aromatics and the garlics are cooking, and you can see how the garlic actually starts to get nice and roasted, golden brown. The next step is actually adding some butter. And let the butter caramelize to a golden brown color, and that will actually be added into the additional layer of a flavor. A very famous steakhouse called Ruth's Chris. They basically cook their steak in the puddle of a butter into a salamander broiler. Something that I was really shocked to learn. They call it Vermonte in a technical term. But it really does add an amazing flavor to the steak. So now, as you can see, I am basically basting that little butter into the steak as we're cooking it. And you can see the butter has actually browned up quite nicely, adding a lot of flavor and aroma to it. So as you can see, we'll just keep basting a little bit of that. Now, the doneness. That's about medium rare right now we're cooking at. So it's about an inch thick steak. It won't take much longer to actually finish cooking at about our medium rare doneness. So what we'll do is we'll let the steak rest and we'll go into the next chapter of cooking. So right there, steak's done, nice and browned up, beautiful. Potato, getting there, perfect. So what we're going to do is we're going to let the steak rest. So what is resting? If I cut this steak right now straight out from the pan, it will be actually quite tense because of the heat. So if I cut into it, a lot of the juice will actually pull out from the meat. So what we want to do is we want the meat to rest a little bit, and you're going to be putting some of this aromatics on top and butter, and let that soak in. Now, in the meantime, what are we going to do? We still have a very hot pan. Saute a little bit of a tomato and asparagus. Pour a little bit of that oil back. And again, the pan is really hot. It's already very hot. So we're going to add a little bit of a tomato, and as you can hear, you can hear that sizzle, which also means the pan is right temperature. A little bit of asparagus. And you might say, why am I not using a separate pan? Well, do you want to wash dish? So, if all possible at a home cooking, we try to do it all in a one spot. If I did not have a potato, I could have done all this in a one pan. But since we do have a potato, we're going to have a 2 pan today. So as you can see, the potatoes are blistering because of the heat. And we don't need to overcook the asparagus. So one of the very important things is we don't overcook certain things. A lot of people like to have a mushy asparagus, but quite, frankly, you want to have a nice, snappy asparagus. You want to cook. You don't want a raw asparagus. However, you don't want to have a really mushy asparagus. And also those mushy asparagus is the one that actually doesn't have the right color. It won't be nice, bright, vibrant green color that I'm used to. You're going to see a lot of brown color added to it. So we don't want that. So we want to definitely just saute that around a little bit with the salt and pepper. Color's looking beautiful. Almost right there. Has a nice little browning on the side. Perfect. All right. Tomatoes blistered. Off. Potatoes done. These off. And we're going to be doing a plating on it now. Super easy. So, how do we plate the food? Simple is best. You don't want to make a complicated plating if all possible. You want to have a nice little simple plating. So have a little bit of potato that we saute right there. Boom. And then we're going to have asparagus. And then little tomatoes. I love the multiple color of these heirloom tomatoes. All right. And then grab that steak that we cooked up earlier. And I'll probably want to have that little garlic and thyme as a garnish. All right. And then why let this wonderful butter sauce go to waste? Pour that little bit on top. That's it. Voila. Simple dish. Again, I'm Chef Tai. Hope you enjoyed the dish and have a wonderful time cooking this with your family.